Such a delightful honor to be here, and I echo all of the praise that has been given to the organization, to the honored people who are here, and to all of you. It's so impressive to see where ICA is today. I was there in Tucson in 1983 when the dealers at the two Colored Stone dealers were talking about the importance of starting an international global organization. And look at where you are today. The last time I spoke was 1999 in Italy, and it has just warmed my heart to see so many of the things that I've been passionate about for my 37 years of working in the trade, in the education, to be talked about today. I'm going to build on the concepts and strategies that have been laid out in the last few days. My first challenge to you is to be global navigators in the time to come. I believe we are our best when we are storytellers. My story today begins with this place, which I better move advance so you know what I'm talking about. The Taj Mahal. I came with Robert Weldon to deliver a book and a message to India and Dubai in 2013. It was a book about pearls because a lot of people didn't realize the kind of experience testing pearls. It was, after all, testing pearls that got our laboratory started in New York before we got into diamonds. And that book, The Splendor and Science of Pearls, sponsored by our executive team and encouraged by Tafiq Farrar. I hope many of you got to know Tafiq. What an amazing person. He wanted us to work on this book, and Robert Weldon and I co-edited it, but the chapters were written by quite a few authors, including Tom Moses, Ken Scarrett, and Nick Sturman. He said, you must go to the Taj Mahal, and we listened. We went from Jaipur to the Taj Mahal. And I want us to take a little time and just sit with this image. I learned in reading a bit about neuroplasticity, what happens with our brains, and I learned a cool technique. People who meditate know this technique, but it turns out that all you have to do to change your brain is to take 3 long breaths in, and then 3 long breaths out. You gotta make sure the exhale is as long as the inhale. We don't want you hyperventilating. We don't want you getting but I've had a little bit of dizziness going on, so let's just take that moment, because the stress that you all deal with, I know some of you manage it very well, but it doesn't hurt to know this little trick of 3 long breaths in as you admire the Taj Mahal. I was stunned when we came to the Taj Mahal. First of all, I thought it would be like Versailles. I thought it would be set in a rural setting, beautiful rural setting like you see here. It's not. It's in the city of Agra, or I should say the city of Agra has grown around it. So this is a large populated city with all of the challenges of a city, but you walk through the gates and you are transposed back. We said the theme for this Congress was the eternal love. Well, what better symbolizes eternal love than the Taj Mahal? The love of one global leader, Shah Jahan, for his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal. She was having her 14th birth of a child, and she died in childbirth in 1631. He immediately began to build this monument to her, and it took 20 years. It's actually a mausoleum set on the south bank of the Yamuna River in Agra. We know a lot about the construction of it because the records were taken and were made at that time, and they still exist. 20,000 craftsmen, skilled craftsmen from the region worked on this building. 1,000 elephants were required to bring the marble that came from the Marcana quarries and the red stone or sandstone that's in the mosques and the other buildings. The Taj Mahal itself was completed earlier than that, but because this is a 42-acre complex where the pools and the gardens are equally as important, it did take 20 years to complete. Since the beginning of civilization, humanity has identified with nature in the form of wearable art. These ornaments have an even greater purpose in lives. They are amulets and they are talisman for protection. They promote health, increase fertility. The wearers indicates their class, their wealth, and their positioning in power. Early cultures centered in the Indus Valley 5,000 years ago had important amulets, so that India became the primary center of gems and exquisite jewelry. This is what brought Babur, his desire to acquire this wealth, to northern India. Babur, the Mughal who founded the Mughal Empire. It went from 1526 to 1857. On the left, we see the third Mughal emperor, Jahangir, 1658 to 1507. You can tell by what he's wearing how important it was to him that jewelry and gems. So important that he had 3 gemologists in his court. One of the gemologists took care of the gems, one of them estimated the value, and the third did grading, because even then, well, as we know back to Pliny's times, gems were treated and imitations were used. The man on the right, in equally exquisite garb, is Shah Jahan. He ruled from 1628 to 1658 and was the 4th emperor. What are some of the gems that they sought? Ruby and marble from what is now Myanmar, sapphire crystals from Sri Lanka, and so remarkable, emeralds. This emerald is from Colombia. It's just fascinating to think that what happened was the opening of, or the discovery, first by the Spanish and then by the Portuguese, of fine emeralds in Colombia. Now we're going to take a look at the trade routes. I was amazed to see that when you look at the Taj Mahal, the second thing that was so intriguing to me, around the front of the archways, the verses from the Quran are set in black onyx. So all those curly letters to make the words from the Quran were carved intricately in black onyx. Then the next layer behind that is amazing intarsia, or what's called there Archankari. Over 30 gems have been documented that were used to make those inlays. So I was intrigued, where did those gems come from? So we set about to put together this map showing distribution of gems around the world at the time of the Mughals. Does this look like a gems and gemology map? Indeed. It's the basis for an article, for a map that will come out in the fall issue of Gems and Gemology about the gems of the Taj Mahal. Our map has grown through the process of review, which we do with all Gems and Gemology articles, so that the finished map will actually be more detailed. But I thought for our purposes today, it's a good chance to see how things were transported. For centuries, traders traveled the Silk Road. They hiked the rugged Hindu Kush mountains in what is now Afghanistan and Tajikistan for lapis lazulis and spinels. They traveled east to the famous mines of Pegu, now Myanmar, for rubies. They sailed across the Gulf of Mannar for pearls and on to Ceylon, now Sri Lanka. And we've indicated the different kinds of species that you can find in those places. If you want to know more about the trade routes that took rubies to India, certainly look through Richard Hughes' Ruby and Sapphire book. There's a wonderful book out now, recently done by a professor at the University of Minnesota on emeralds and the trade that brought the emeralds from South America to India. What were these traders looking for when they came to India? And I really wanted India to be at the center because all of those trade routes were coming from the east and to the west to India. But it wouldn't have worked out so well in the layout, so keep your eyes on India. It was the opening of the emeralds in South America that were so significant to India. And here's an example of one of those pendants. This is a Mughal emerald pendant engraved in the language of the Mughal court, Farsi. This is a 15-karat Colombian emerald surrounded by rubies and diamonds. Its kundan set, which many of you probably know, is high-carat gold foil that's placed between the gems and the setting. The back is decorated equally exquisitely with rubies, emeralds, and diamonds in a typical Muslim floral setting. We had the wonderful opportunity of having a private collection come to GIA, and out of that collection we had an exhibit that was at our last symposium. That catalog that goes with the collection, called Centuries of Opulence, Jewels of India, is where the images come from that make up what we're going to see as we move forward. I do ask you, I know it's popular to take photos, I do ask you that once you have those photos, please don't put them on any social media or share them. The owners of the collection, two folks in their 90s, have requested, they've given us permission to use the photos, but really not to spread them through social media. So I would really appreciate it if you honor that. Now I want you to evolve your mindset as we heard today. My purpose today is inspire you to reach out to millennial men as you have never reached out to them before. We've heard a lot this week about how do we grow this industry. There's the whole segment of millennial men. You're hearing about how to market to millennial women, but I'm not hearing much about millennial men. So what I'm going to do is continue to show you the images of what the Mughals wore, and then I'm going to juxtapose that with very brave millennial men who are wearing colored stone jewelry. If you decide to take up the challenge, or you already are taking up the challenge that Bill Boyajian offered, that we should have ruby and sapphire set as keystones and rings, be sure that you make the bands for men to have those same gems in the bands. Always been a person with lots of notes. So this Mughal horn on the left is a 125-karat Colombian emerald engraved with the salutation of peace verse from the Quran. And I'm just struck by, as I go through the pieces, how much that these messages are timeless. Peace, getting along. We'll see lots of these kinds of messages as we go through. So this is emeralds, rubies, diamonds, pearls, again set in 24-karat gold. A British trader in Agra, who lived there from 1609 to 1611, said that Shah Jahan had 500,000 carats of emeralds like this. Now remember, can you imagine what it was like when they saw those first emeralds? Because before that, what did they have? They had little bits of emerald from Egypt, and all of a sudden you're getting 125-karat stones. My God. The fellow on the right. We begin our examination of millennial men and jewelry wearing with this Indian man who has taken the traditional turban ornament and is wearing it over his heart with 3 strands of emeralds attached to the shoulder. This is the tradition following the Mughals and the Maharajas and carries the same influence, power, and status today. When I went back to see where did I get this photo, it came off of Pinterest. And while I was there, I saw that many notable men have been wearing brooches in recent times. For example, Billy Porter wore Oscar Hyman pins, which included an invisibly set ruby pin, to the 2019 Global Awards, Golden Globe Awards. Pharrell Williams wore, to the Oscars, wore white, gold, and enamel pins. As we go along, I'm going to talk about characteristics of millennials. So one characteristic is that they have a strong need to fit in, and that celebrity endorsements, whether it's from people in the industry or movie stars, local notable people, for influencers helps them to be reassured about their purchases. This Krishna pendant, the Hindu god Krishna, flanked by his two consorts, again Kudan set rubies, faces carved in emerald and ruby. On the right, we see another millennial man. They're experimenting with jewelry more than ever before. This is pro basketball player Jackson Hayes. His nickname is Sideshow Hayes, Sideshow Jax. To commemorate his being up for the 2019 National Basketball Association draft, he had Al the jeweler of LaBelle Jewelers in New Jersey create this Simpson character. When I first saw it, I thought that maybe it was a palm tree until people pointed out to me, oh no, that is a Simpson character. It's 1,000 stones, 500 rubies, and 500 PS diamonds. And he proudly wears that along with his New Orleans Pelicans hat where he got drafted. So these folks are boom sprinters, meaning that they ceaselessly follow new trends. They are trendsetters, and they will commemorate important events with major pieces. Then they share them publicly on social media like Instagram. I made a note here at the time that it's time to resurrect the gem bureaus and make sure that there are images in every gem bureau in the different regions, digital images that can be shared, because you're going to see how difficult it was for me to find images to fit the top. This is a Getty image. If you take the Getty image and download it, you're going to pay $175 for minimum use. The next rate is $495 and then $695. But maybe Gem Bureau, maybe there's another way from what we've heard about social media. So I pose that question to the people who've been on the panels. How best to serve all of the ICA members in getting high quality digital images where you hold the where the copyright is held or licensed so that these images are available. You don't want to have to go to Getty every time you want an image. So encouraging individual companies to have their photography done in high quality and then share it with the group. Of course, when I first started to look at millennial men, what did I think about first? Diamonds. So here we have the Maharaja of Patiala wearing 2 diamond necklaces. They were created by Cartier for his father in 1928. He also has a star brooch and a diamond tiara in his turban. On the right, we see Nick Cannon. My impression about what I would find would be heavy gold jewelry that rappers and hip-hop artists would be wearing and then would be copied by people who followed them. But it turns out those gold chains have evolved very quickly into diamond chains. Fabulous diamond necklaces, multiple diamond necklaces. So these same artists and athletes are buying $500,000 necklaces, $600,000 necklaces, all in diamonds. Well, that trend's moving along. Now I think you're going to see that they want colored stones too. So let's take a hint from that and follow up. So Nick Cannon, at the time that he was the host of America's Got Talent, has a fabulous collection of shoes, the kind of shoes that we heard Ben talking about, fabulous collection of shoes, so he wanted the most expensive pair of shoes that could be created. He's had a long relationship with Jason of Beverly Hills, so we went to him and he asked him to create diamond shoes. They started out with a set of Tom Ford patent leather shoes, and Jason's jewelers figured out how to make a mesh of a diamond net to fit over the shoes. Each set of 4 diamonds is soldered into place. That makes it possible and flexible to wear these shoes. They're actually meant to be worn, and he has worn them as he clearly shows here. Each 18,000 stones, 18,000 diamonds went into it, 9,000 in each. They weigh 3.5 pounds. And if you were at JCK, you had the opportunity to see them on display. Right now, they're on display at GIA. We had a career fair over the weekend and also the opening of the Hollywood Jewels exhibit featuring pieces from Michael Kazanjian. So the diamonds are back in the rotunda. Millennials want to create individuality at the same time they are adding things that are important to their collection. Nick, I think part of the reason that he's allowed the pair of shoes to travel is because he will plan to put them up at auction eventually. So here's another person who's mindful about where the stones came from and what's going to happen to them. So then I asked the question, what about emeralds? And when I thought of emeralds, the first thing I remembered were those spectacular earrings that Angelina Jolie wore to the 2009 Academy Awards from Lorraine Schwartz. So I called them up and I said, what do you have? Well, Pharrell Williams, singer, songwriter, rapper, and record producer, just appeared at Rhiannon's 2019 Diamond Ball for charity, otherwise he wouldn't have performed, the Clara Lionel Foundation, wearing an emerald ring designed for him by Lorraine Schwartz. The only way I could get the image is a Getty image. So here again, whether we send our own photographers to these kinds of events, whether you find the photographer, because quite often a photographer will take multiple events, and unless they're licensed, unless they only can provide images to Getty, which probably isn't true, it would probably be possible to get license from them. They didn't have a photo, they no longer had the ring, but they could give me a photo of this 40-carat emerald ring. Millennials are risk takers. They save less than any other group, and they'll spend more money on jewelry. What about social consciousness? On the left, we have a men's bracelet as a symbol of power and influence. Diamonds from Burmese rubies and emeralds from Rajasthan and set in 22 karat. On the right, something much more simple, but certainly speaks to the heart of millennials. Two surfers, Alex Schultz and Andrew Cooper, went to Bali expecting to surf in beautiful water on beautiful sandy beaches. Instead, they found beaches covered in trash, plastics and other trash. They asked the lifeguard, well, why don't you pick these up? He said they did. The high tide came in and has completely covered it again. They returned, and in 2017, they started an organization called For Ocean. They created bracelets. The bracelets are all recycled materials. The cord is 100% post-consumer plastic. The beads are recycled glass. One bracelet costs $20. You can sign up for a subscription. You get a different bracelet every month, and each bracelet speaks to an animal or refers to an animal of the ocean. In the process, 8 million tons of plastic, much of that one-time use plastic goes into the ocean. Since, as of June 15, 4.7 tons have been taken out. Oh, this fellow is a skateboarder that Danusha Netlevitz found for me in Malibu, and she's the co-author of World Hallmarks Volume 1 and 2. Here's where I talk about making sure that we're mindful about people having living wage. It's very important that we think about, if we want to have young people be able to buy our products in the future, that they have living wages. They might have jobs, but how much do those jobs pay, and what will their future be like? We heard one of the young leaders on our panel say, what keeps you up at night? Climate change. And the other thing that keeps me up at night is the amount of climate immigrants that we're going to have as a result of the rising sea level. This is a problem that we all have to handle locally, but also solve globally. My next pair, this gorgeous royal manga mala necklace, mango-shaped, a traditional southern India, ruby pendant, in the mythological two-headed bird. I'm juxtaposing that picture with ruby shoes, high-heeled ruby shoes. You're saying, were these worn by a man? Yes, they were. Marc Jacobs had these ruby shoes made, and he wore them to MTV's Video Music Award in 2019. He announced it on Instagram, and the best photo of seeing him with the suit that he wore and those heels is on Instagram. If you try to find the Getty image, he's with Queen Latifah, and all you see is a little ring of emeralds, and you would never guess they were high heels. These are Swarovski crystals made to look like ruby slippers. I keep coming back to Indian wedding dress because I think they've embraced the idea that you can have all of these wonderful ornaments and wear them. The Mogul jade turban ornament on the left is a relatively, only a relative number have survived in nephrite. It's also set with diamonds, spinels, and emeralds, a sarkat. It recreates the shape of a feather. On the right, this kalgi is gem-studded and holds the place for feathers. A characteristic of millennials is they will follow family traditions when it's associated with the family. Ceremonial knives. The Moguls had elaborate jeweled knives and swords. It was an important symbol of power and acknowledged the success of their military operations. And on the right, another, perhaps not a millennial, but he has his sword as well as his jewels. Here's a place where the 60s kid has to talk about war and peace. The Cost of War project began in 2011. 35 scholars came together to say, what is it that we spend each year on war? We spend $14 trillion, which works out to $853 for every person living today. If a family had $2,000 for every person, what a difference it would make in their life, what a difference it would make in their ability to have fine things, and we simply have to do what we can, each of us to be peacemakers. I remember I had one of the first pendants I bought said, war is not healthy for children and other living things. And I think that what we can do to be peacemakers is ever so important. Archer ring on the left. Very popular, protected the thumb of the archer. These became fashionable in Mogul times. They're also popular in many cultures. In China, there's also nephrite rings. There's a peacock symbol engraved on the back. Millennial men would identify themselves more as spiritual rather than religious. Certainly there are strong religions throughout the world, and that's going to continue, and many religious objects go with that life, that religious life, like prayer beads. But in this case, this fellow has a ring. His center stone, let's say that this red stone, maybe a garnet, has 8 different religious symbols around the outside, and that's reflected in the 2 bracelets that he's wearing. So it's characteristic that millennial men will choose suites of jewelry to create a fashion statement, and they'll also show their spirituality. This one astonished me. The Mogul diamond and emerald necklace on the left, obtained from a descendant of Nizam of Hyderabad. 150 carats of Golconda diamond, 47 Colombian emerald beads. And when I found this picture of the fellow on the right, his necklace is so similar. He also had beads of spinel, emeralds, and pearls. This is the famous Bollywood actor and groom, Ranveer Singh. The Vishnu pendant. Vishnu pendant. Lord Vishnu, preserver and protector of the universe, one of the most powerful gods. He has returned to earth to restore balance of good and evil. And I feel like that's certainly something we need today. It's a creation of a human torso in the upper half and a fish in the lower half with emerald face, rubies, hands and eyes, and the pearl. I called Doug Hucker to see what HUTA had done, because I knew that every year he would bring media people together in New York and have fashion models. And he said for the first time they had a male model. This is the fellow that they featured. He's wearing a pin as well as gemstones and certainly more subtle gemstone rings. It's a characteristic that we heard about from Ben about partnering with, no, it was earlier on the panel, partnering with Gemfield and clothing companies, and that's the sort of arrangements that could happen in the future. Millennial men also want their jewelry to be functional and have high technology, just like the smartwatch did. So some jewelry companies are figuring out ways to make their jewelry interactive too. The dancing Shiva. Host of different gems in that pendant. It's a mosaic of Shiva dancing on the demon of ignorance and greed. Another powerful message. One of the few blue sapphires that I've seen in Mogul jewelry, and that's seen in the collection of these two people who loaned us. Perhaps it's because blue is associated with Saturn, and that's a more turbulent planet, perhaps because it has some connection to greed. Jason Momoa on the right of Aquaman fame, the movie Aquaman, showing assortment jewelry that he wore at Comic-Con. His Hopi turquoise necklace has coral, he has a ring and gold bracelet. Just as the theme of the movie talked about the importance of the health of the ocean, so Jason goes around speaking about the perils facing our oceans. I wore pearls today to remind us that pearls are the canaries of the ocean. We need to watch what happens to mollusks, because as temperatures rise and this affects the mollusk population, it's certainly telling us a lot about what's happening with the warming of the ocean. The Navaratna, 9 major gems in this would be worn on the upper arm, worn to temper adverse influence of planets and astrological signs. The millennial man on the right has got a ruby and zoisite bracelet. He's postponed getting married. I know him quite well. Probably partly out of millennials have different ideas about when they're going to get married, when they're going to make commitments. So we'll probably never see the return to the number of engagement rings that we had in the past. But we can have jewelry, we can have commitment jewelry, we can respond to that in different ways. They want transparency in pricing, sustainable pictures, replace what we have. One more Navaratna piece. Interesting that it is an intricately carved lattice like in the Taj Mahal, called the Jali style. It's set, and you can see that on YouTube, the 9 different gemstones relate to the different planets. I've put Roland Naftool here to say to each of you, you can be the role models for how we move forward in the industry when it comes to jewelry wearing men. When I looked around at this group, I saw many stunning examples being worn. So I know to some of you, you already are living that. Roland Naftool was the first jewelry person to speak to me at the Tucson Gem Show. And what he told me about the industry obviously worked. I've been here 37 years. I also wanted to remind us about chakra stones, a little bracelet, probably from China, that has volcanic rock as beads. Nice to use if you want to put aromatherapy and oils in that, but it also has each of the chakra stones, and many people relate to chakra, and it's a way to get affordable real jewelry to people. Also, Roland's worked with fancy colored sweets, sapphires, garnets, and a mixture of them. Having fancy colored sweets of jewelry. Last night, a woman had a pin, a circle pin with all different kinds of sapphires, and a bracelet. This is something that certainly will appeal to many people. Lots of people have loved those, and it certainly appeals to the LGBTQ community and those people who support them with rainbow jewelry. And finally, my last photo, because my time is up. My last pair of photos, Shah Jahan on the terrace, holding a pendant, painted by Chitarama when he became emperor. This is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it is an absolutely exquisite painting that we will have in our article. On the right, Jeremy Scott with Bella Hadid at the Met Gala in 2019. Pretty similar kinds of styles. He's from the fashion house of Moschino, and he's shown here at that event. He designed the clothing and jewelry himself. I was hoping that they were actually real stones. Well, they're Swarovski crystals, which I guess would make sense since they don't have too many yards with them. Everything is on YouTube. If you see what he's pointing to, that's his grills. Now, back in the rapper days, they would drill holes in their teeth and insert diamonds, but eventually grills evolved, and this particular set of grills actually does have ruby gemstones set with diamonds around it. You can take it out and put it back in. So if you go on YouTube, you can see that. I love this quote about a millennial man. He approaches each day with unbridled enthusiasm, embraces those less fortunate, and makes art out of life. Whew, we made it through 400 years. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I look around the room and I see all those eager faces of the young people. We are in good hands. I'm convinced of that. The future is in good hands. So many bright women spoke today, and on the panels, bravo to ICA. That took courage. Thank you, Henry Ho. We reconnected after 40 years at the GIS Symposium last year in Carlsbad, and he asked me to speak to you about millennials. I realize now that our young men need to be wearing colored stones for inspiration, for beauty, for spirituality, for protection. As Mr. Frida Tiasuan told us on Monday, we are on shaky ground globally. It will take people of good courage to weather what is coming. Not that I'm not optimistic, I am, but we've got big challenges ahead. We're not selling green. We do it best when we do it in community. Communities like ICA. And I heard in the last panel, perhaps the best way to solve the issue about how we evolve our ideas about jewelry, men and jewelry, is to come up with communities that talk about men and jewelry. Because if we do it one person at a time, one company at a time, it's going to take a really long time. Colored stones are passionate. It's going to take that passion and that resilience in order to see us through. So, I plead to you, see to it that young men and young women alike are wearing colored stones. Safe travels, good health.